The full detailed story of the Knights Templar, from their glorious rise to their tragic fall, focusing on the events of 1307, the full story of the Knights Templar. The story of the Knights Templar is a gripping tale of faith, finance, warfare, and political betrayal. It begins in the wake of the First Crusade and ends in flames, shaping conspiracy theories for centuries to come. Origins and rise to power, c. 1119-1139. The context. After the First Crusade, 1096-1099, captured Jerusalem, thousands of Christian pilgrims flocked to the Holy Land. The journey through hostile territory was perilous, and they were often robbed and killed by bandits. The founding. Around 1119, a French knight named Hugues de Payens and 8 of his relatives and companions proposed a solution. They founded a new monastic order, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, later known as the Knights Templar. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience with a unique mission to protect pilgrims on the roads to Jerusalem. Royal and papal endorsement, King Baldwin II of Jerusalem gave them headquarters on the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which the Crusaders believed was the site of Solomon's temple, hence the name Templar. Their big break came in 1129 at the Council of Troyes, where the influential abbot Bernard of Clairvaux passionately endorsed them. He wrote their rule, the Latin Rule, and praised them as a new form of sanctified warrior, calling them the militia of God, the papal bull. In 1139, Pope Innocent II issued the bull Omni Datum Optimum, which granted the Templars extraordinary privileges. They were exempt from all local laws and taxes, answered only to the Pope himself, and could freely cross any border. This made them a sovereign international organization. The Templar Empire, monks, bankers, and warriors. The Templars evolved into the world's first multinational corporation and a powerful military financial complex. The military monks. They were the most disciplined and elite fighting force of the Crusades. They were easily recognizable in their white mantles with a distinct red cross. Their ferocity in battle was legendary, and they were often used as the vanguard or rearguard of Crusader armies. The first international bankers. This is key to their story and their downfall. Pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land could deposit their assets at a Templar preceptory, house in Europe, and receive a letter of credit. They could then withdraw the equivalent funds in the Holy Land. This system was incredibly efficient and secure. The Templars managed the finances of kings, nobles, and the church. They essentially became the bankers for the crown of France and the papacy itself. Vast wealth and holdings. Through donations, banking, and business, they amassed enormous wealth. They built a network of fortifications across the Holy Land and Europe, owned vast farmlands, preceptories, and operated a fleet of ships. The cracks appear, loss of the Holy Land. The Templars' purpose was intrinsically linked to the Crusader states. As Muslim forces under leaders like Saladin began to reconquer the Holy Land, the Templars' position became precarious. Key defeats. The fall of Jerusalem in 1187 was a massive blow. The Crusader capital of Acre fell in 1291, marking the end of the Christian presence in the Holy Land. The existential crisis. With no Holy Land to protect, the Knights Templar lost their primary raison d'etre. They retreated to their base on Cyprus and their extensive properties in Europe. To many, including powerful kings, they now appeared as a very rich, heavily armed, and independent state within their states, with no clear purpose. The suppressor, Philip IV of France, Philip the Fair. The man who would destroy the Templars was King Philip IV of France. He was a ruthless ruler obsessed with consolidating royal power, and crucially, he was desperately in debt. The debt. Philip had borrowed vast sums from the Templars to finance his wars with England, the Gascon War. He was the Templars' biggest debtor and saw no way to repay them. The motivation. 1. Wealth. Seizing the Templars' immense assets in France would instantly solve his financial crisis and make him the richest monarch in Christendom. 2. Power. The Templars were an independent entity loyal only to the Pope. Eliminating them would remove a rival power center and demonstrate Philip's supremacy over all entities in France. The pretext. Philip needed a legitimate reason to move against such a revered order. He began a secret propaganda campaign, spreading rumors and encouraging former Templars to come forward with confessions of heresy and blasphemy. The charges included denying Christ and spitting on the cross during initiation ceremonies, worshipping an idol, often described as a bearded head called Baphomet, engaging in homosexual acts, corruption, and secret rituals. These accusations provided the religious and legal justification Philip needed to take action. The hammer falls. Friday, October 13, 1307. Philip acted with stunning speed and secrecy. The sealed orders. On September 14, 1307, Philip sent sealed orders to his bailiffs and seneschals across France. They were to be opened simultaneously at dawn on Friday, October 13, 1307, a date which may be the origin of the superstition surrounding Friday the 13th. The mass arrest. In a perfectly coordinated dawn raid, French royal officials arrested hundreds of Templars, including the Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, who was staying at the temple in Paris. They were taken by complete surprise, offering no resistance. Confessions under torture. The Templars were thrown into dungeons and subjected to brutal torture by Philip's inquisitors, including being stretched on the rack, burned with hot irons, and having their feet roasted over fire. Under this extreme duress, many Templars, including de Molay, confessed to the crimes. The endgame and dissolution, 1307-1314. Philip now had to make the charges stick and get the Pope's approval for a permanent dissolution. The Pope's dilemma. Pope Clement V, based in Avignon, and widely seen as being under Philip's influence, was initially furious at Philip's audacity in arresting an order that reported only to the papacy. However, faced with the confessions, he felt compelled to act. In 1308, he temporarily suspended the order's activities. The Papal Bull. After years of pressure from Philip and further investigations, Pope Clement V finally issued the Bull Vox in Excelso in 1312, which officially dissolved the Knights Templar, not outright condemning them for heresy, but suppressing them due to the scandal and infamy that now surrounded them. The transfer of wealth. Another bull, ad providam, transferred almost all of the Templars' vast wealth and properties to their rivals, the Knights Hospitaller. In reality, King Philip managed to seize a significant portion of the Templars' movable assets, gold, money, in France, ensuring he largely achieved his financial goal. The final act. The burning of Jacques de Molay, 1314. In March 1314, Grand Master Jacques de Molay and the preceptor of Normandy, Geoffroy de Charnay, were brought before a public tribunal to confirm their confessions. To the shock of the crowd and the authorities, they bravely recanted their forced confessions and proclaimed the order's innocence. For this act of defiance, King Philip IV had them immediately arrested as relapsed heretics. That very evening, they were taken to a small island on the River Seine in Paris, Île aux Juifs, and burned alive at the stake. Legend says that as the flames consumed him, Jacques de Molay cursed both King Philip and Pope Clement, summoning them to meet him before God's court within a year. Whether by coincidence or not, Pope Clement V died just 1 month later of a long illness, likely cancer, and King Philip IV died in a hunting accident later that same year, November 1314. The Knights Templar were suppressed not because they were guilty of the outlandish crimes accused of them, but because they had become too powerful, too wealthy, and too vulnerable. They were the victims of a ruthless king's greed and a weak pope's political expediency. Their dramatic end, marked by betrayal, torture, and heroic last stands, ensured their legend would far outlive their historical reality, fueling myths of hidden treasures, secret knowledge, and survival that continue to captivate the world to this day.